All right, everyone. Welcome once again to the Faces of Business. I am your co-host, Damon Pistolka, and wow, am I excited today because we've got Jessica Walther here from Itivate. Did I say that?
Itivate. Yep.
Itivate.
Close enough.
Oh,
Yep.
close. Got close. I'm excited, and we're going to be talking about scaling businesses, putting people first. I think this is an awesome topic. We arranged this a long time ago, and we're hearing the rumblings of the. First of all, it was quiet quitting. Now it's loud quitting. But
Yes.
let's talk about how we can put people first and still scale our businesses without losing everyone. So, Jessica, we always like to start out with your background. Let's learn a bit about you and how you got to where you are today doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. So, first of all, getting to the world of supply chain operations, it like most people, it was a windy road. Naturally, a creative person, which as it turns out is very well suited for entrepreneurship and starting a business because there's no more place that you need to be creative than doing that, building a business from scratch, especially when you're bootstrapping. So really, I spent 10 years in corporate procurement, really focused on, helping make sure that transformations went well. And lucky for me, in terms of what we help solve for businesses that are going through their own transformations, I've had a lot of experiences of what not to do
Mhm.
and packaged all of that up to really help businesses from the outside. Coming in as a partner, certainly looking and having some aspects feel very similar to what you would expect with a consulting partner. But really, what I was very focused on when I started the business in 2019 was making sure that we weren't just giving expensive advice. Nobody needed more of that. It was more around how are we helping these founders and owners implement these best practices that we all had, the experience with in Fortune 50, 100 companies, which is what the Itivate team is built from. But really having a very core, incessant value on taking care of people in the process. So businesses are going through change. Change is stressful, and change not executed well is wildly expensive. So, the last two experiences in my corporate life were all focused on how do you turn around a poor performing team into a really high performing team without burning them out. And then using really traditional business excellence metrics and other techniques to inspire people to do great work, not make them feel like they're constantly under the gun or feeling like they're always under pressure. That kills productivity. It doesn't enhance it. So really from all of that and just having this very strong personal connection to helping businesses treat their people really well on that process of growing, how do we put all of that together and make it a great transformation experience rather than a traumatic one? So that's the goal.
All right. Well, I just want to back up a little bit because you said something that I had to write down, and I love it. We just don't want to give these founders more expensive advice. And
Mm-hmm.
you talked about helping them actually implement the change because, wow, that from the beginning of the work that we do, helping people prepare and sell businesses is what the foundation of what we do because what we looked around and saw is there's a lot of people that will tell you what you should do. You should eat less because you're going to, eat less, eat healthier because you're going to do that. But yeah, that's fine. You can tell me that all day long. But if you can't help me eat healthier, I haven't done it for this many years. How am I going to do it now? You
Right.
know, and that's really I so cool that you said that because it's the key in the small and medium sized businesses is that they need help getting this done. They don't necessarily need a new idea as much
Right.
as they need help getting it done because they're strapped for resources.
Right. Right.
Uh,
Yeah. Growing businesses can't also hire, a COO and a full team, a full staff to execute this stuff. They
yeah.
gotta they gotta be able to be strategic in how they're spending their money. And, $50,000, $100,000 could literally cripple a business. And that's
Hmm.
usually what the ticket is to get support. And so they have to be really thoughtful about what they're getting. So I know you and I align really closely on how
Yeah.
it's important to help them implement. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I've got to ask. Back, you're going to to college,
Yeah.
a degree in supply chain and operations. Did you intend on that when you went into college?
No. Not even a little bit.
Awesome, awesome.
Not even a little bit, but no, I took what I like to call a victory lap in college. I decided to stay an extra year because I tried about every major there was. That's part of how I learn is
Mm-hmm.
through, experimenting and trying new things. And I originally went to school as a music performance major, believe it or not. And I said, all right, well, this is a passion, but not necessarily how I want to make my livelihood.
Mm-hmm.
So, I went through marketing, accounting, and finance, and say all these different traditional paths that you can take in a business program. And then I found supply chain and ops, and I'm like, well, this is a little bit of all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what I'm interested in is this intersection of all these different acumen, and how do you bring that together to run a business? So that once I found that major, it was new at the time. I was like the second class that went through that program, and it was the best decision ever because it allowed me to have such a diversity of experience doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, you've worked for some big names that moved a lot. I mean, they have to move a lot of product. They
Yeah,
move a lot to get the coordination and movement and just wow.
yeah.
So as you're helping people now, what what are the things that you see these founders need the most help just making sense with?
Yes. One is getting work off of their own plate.
Ooh, yes.
Uh, Working through all the reasons why they don't want to let things go. There's again going back to the people aspect of what we do. We don't skip that step. We don't just tell a founder you have to let go. We help them navigate all the fear and all of the concern surrounding, well, what happens if I let it go? They have to feel good about that before they hand it off to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we don't just come out with templates and say, all right, we're going to gather all your work streams, we're going to streamline the processes, and we're going to hand it off, and your team's going to handle it from there. If they don't trust themselves to hand that off, their team's going to, one, know that, and two, it's not going to succeed. That handoff is not going to be a good experience for anybody.
Yeah.
So trust, going through that, learning how to understand what is holding them back, and having them hold on so tightly to the everyday functions of their business. And then also too, arming that leader in that organization with a really high functioning team that has great processes and has KPIs that motivate them. It's a whole culture shift, and sometimes we get a little bit of resistance when we bring up things like culture, because they're like, oh yeah, we'll get to that later. Like, let me just get to the real hard numbers kind of business stuff. And we see the two needing to go very much hand in hand. And we won't just blow through a culture issue for the sake of process. It really has to go, support one, and the other.
Yeah. That's
So
awesome. That's
yeah.
awesome. It's like you got to start with, as you said, the culture, the people, the side of it. And we have a client that we just spent, not a large client, that we
Mhm.
spent, what is it now? Almost 3 months of offsite meetings, not long offsite meetings, but like half day offsite meetings,
Mhm.
just clarifying the mission, vision, and values. That's all we did.
Yep.
We didn't talk about it. And we thought we were going to get it done. And that many times we still got to go back again because we think we've got the values pretty good.
Right.
But the mission doesn't, it's not compelling enough yet, and not felt enough, because
Right.
when you talk about culture, hey, listen, I was horrible at this early in my career. I just thought, being an engineer, I thought, hey, we just lay out what we got to do and we're going to do it. And that in some situations works okay. Uh, but in the vast majority of situations, you really need to take the time to get people on board, not only with, yeah, we want to have a successful company, but we want to do this because of this reason. It really motivates all of us to supersede our arrogance, our ego, selfishness, all those kind of things. And then you let your values lay out what's acceptable or not on our way there, really.
Right.
And I don't explain it well, but I just think it's so key now that companies, when you don't start there,
Mm-hmm.
you have so much confusion later. But if we start there and we do it right, the questions, decisions that everyone, top to bottom, needs to make can be answered pretty easily if we look back at our mission, vision, and values. It's like, should we do this? Well, what's our mission statement say? It says we're going to do this. Is this going to
Yeah.
move in the right direction? Yes, it is. Are we doing it the right way? Do our values and everything else, are these all in alignment with what we're doing?
Yeah.
That is such a key point. I'm glad you brought it up, because if you want to grow, I really think it is the next level of business to be able to create these teams, like you said, these incredible teams, is you have to have everyone working together.
Yep.
And it happens sometimes naturally, but most times you have to do it intentionally.
Yes. And especially in fast growing businesses, there's
Yes.
a very successful history of the figure it out model, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And at a certain size, that's okay. Used to really strengthen that organization, and they might not learn that way.
Yeah.
So it's important to get that really clear. And, I say all this both as like you, an advisor, but probably like you too, we're always doing this in our own business.
Mm-hmm.
It is a recurring activity, a repeatable activity to look at, are we, in the way that we're executing certain projects, is that ethos being maintained? Or, and we have controls in place, we talk operations a lot. So we have process and controls in place to protect that, because if we don't, we're just another commoditized,
Mm-hmm.
service provider. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done to get businesses back where they want to be, especially, since 2020. A lot of the old structures are starting to show their weakness. And, it's a joy to be able to patch that back together in a stronger way, not just going back to what we used to know, but evolving, in that way. So
I agree 100% there, because, there we were thrust into something that taught us a lot that I think will be valuable in the future as we go forward to the companies that embrace it. Right. I mean, you look at remote work. Do you ever want to have a company complete remote? I don't think so.
right.
But boy, if you can have some talent that you just can't find around you for some reason, and you can find it and work remotely with it, well, holy heck, did that not give you a competitive advantage that you didn't have before?
Totally.
It's like, and it commoditized it almost, because, nobody thought about that 5 years ago, other than large companies that could go set a division up wherever they wanted to and recruit those people in those areas. And now it's so much easier for the shop down the street. Literally the bakery down the street can have something done around the globe and integrated right in their business.
Yep.
All their accounting can get done someplace else right now, and they don't even have to worry about it. It works just fine.
Right. Right. So true. Yeah.
Yeah. So a couple of things that you're a process person. I like that. I like that. So
process
what are some
people? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, because you have to the process has to work with the people, not one or the other. It's integrated, kind of like, I'll stay from that. It's got to be integrated. So what are some of the exciting things you're seeing in your clients, or as you're thinking about process, you're thinking about the clients you're talking to, the potential, the clients you're working with? What are some of the exciting things you see in process and people and systems?
Oh, so many things. So, I mean, the reality is that it feels like the year that anybody that started a business right around 2020, they're starting to feel that pressure of, all right, this worked when I was a solopreneur or I had a team of 5. But if they've if they've built a successful product and service, the customers are starting to mount up and they're coming more frequently, which is great. However, we're also seeing, and one of the biggest reasons that we're contacted these days is their customers are starting to call out inefficiencies and broken processes rather than having it come from inside the organization.
Ooh.
That's not what you want, especially when you're in growth mode. It makes the target of success really easy to measure. Our products getting delivered on time, all those things that we use to measure success, it makes it really simple. But companies are struggling in understanding how do they streamline and really orchestrate the movement of information and product, and how do we measure and continuously improve? Usually the clients that we're working with are not at the continuous improvement stage. They're at the, we have no plan and we're finally able to admit it. Can you please come in and help us figure that out? And we love doing that work. Usually there's always, there are some, illuminating moments of the team members that they have doing certain kinds of work. And I'm not talking about, reducing, labor force at all.
Yeah.
I'm talking about just putting the right people in the right roles and having those team members feel seen for what they can actually do well. Usually there's a realignment process for sure of, all right, you have somebody sitting behind it that is sitting behind a desk that really wants to be in front of people all the time. How do we make that more natural for them? Usually they've already seen some sort of disconnect in performance by that time, but what unfortunately we're still seeing is that the response to that from a leadership level is work harder, not work smarter, right? That brute force, that grit, it's still very glamorized to some extent. People eventually get exhausted from that. And, we helping leaders understand their own team is such a fun way to kick off any sort of engagement. It really makes sure that everybody feels like they're part of the same mission and part of the same family in a way. And then it makes it a lot more fun to go get the the goals that everybody wants.
Yeah. So do you think that, I'm gonna back up a little bit. I'm trying to phrase my question in my mind a little bit better.
Yeah.
So when you see these organizations, do you think that, do you see a lot of them have no KPIs and key performance indicators, so they don't understand? And you shaking your head yes to that. Now my follow-up question is that, do you think by simply showing people what success looks like, that we reduce stress in the business?
So let me rephrase my nodding of the head. So
Okay.
A lot of businesses think they have KPIs.
Yes.
They're like, this is a number and it's real, it's on a page, so I have a KPI. Yes, but what are you doing to impact that KPI? Do you have a team that feels empowered and is capable of contributing to the success of that KPI? Or are we just using it to say, we're 80%, we're supposed to be at 95. Why aren't we working hard enough? And all this kind of broken methodology of getting people excited about the goal. So that's one thing. And then the second part of your question was, do you think by making it transparent? Absolutely. They also have to contribute to the goal though. It would be, and sometimes we see that there's an assumption being made of what success looks like at the leadership level and not involving the team who's doing it every day. Like, how do we get those KPIs to be more leading indicators of things that might not be working so well, rather than waiting for the moment that the metric is red, have it be a super dramatic experience for everyone. Everybody wants to quit that day. It's like, what's the point? Really shifting that to be all right, guys, here's the state of our business. Just simple language changes make a big difference. And then using that as let's go get the finish line. Let's together have it be an exciting time. And when the metric is red, great. How do we all get creative around what we can all do to make a positive impact on that? Not just feel like we did a crappy job that day.
Yeah, really that's really something that I think that's why I was trying to state my question appropriately, and I'm glad you answered it the way you did, because when you lay out a KPI, I think a lot of times they're just launched and it's like you need to produce 100 a day or whatever the KPI is, and it's not really. We would like to produce 100 a day because this gives us the profitability or whatever to invest, or whatever the thing is that why you want to get 100. And
Yeah.
then if you only look at it once a month or something like that people are just looking at their financials once a month. I get a little bit of throw up when I hear that they do that, because it's so horrible that because it comes inevitably. If you look at it once a month, it happens just like you said. You go in and the financials turned out wrong for some reason, and everybody's like, what the heck, and
right.
You're all feeling bad. But if we get these things into a KPI that I can see daily, weekly, hourly, whatever the right amount of time is, and we go, oh man, we did 10 today or whatever of clients, and it doesn't really matter what it is, and we know that our goal is 9, so we did great, or our goal is 11. How can we get one more? And like you said, they're working together. Those those metrics really help when they're used the right way. When they're but they can be very detrimental. So how much coaching do you have to do with leaders so they actually understand how to use the KPIs appropriately? Is it a difficult thing? Do you have training you do? How does you?
Honestly, it's not so much the training with the leaders. It's actually the training for the people who truly their work impacts the metric every day. Okay. They feel it's more about building trust with them to give them faith that this KPI initiative is real and not just like the flavor of the month kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
The leader wants their hands out of it at a deep level. Like they want to feel like they can step away from their business. They can breathe. They can maybe even take a vacation. In their deepest sense of self, they want to let go, but they're usually visionaries. They're not always designed to also be the person that operationally is going to get it done. And I think that's, we've all read Strengths Finders and we know this, but putting it into practice is still a massive gap in how we run businesses every day. So really it's at the ground level. Who is going to impact this metric the most? And, the way that we focus on doing metrics is it actually gives them a platform to speak their mind about things that they felt for years could be done better. They just didn't have a voice or a platform to share it. But when that moment happens, there's nothing better. It's like it's watching like your kid grow up. They truly see that they are empowered, and then when that builds momentum. Mm-hmm. And then you get to up the goal or add goals because they already know, they've proven to themselves that they can do it. And that is, culture done any other way. I've not really seen it work as well as something like that.
Yeah. Truly, no doubt.
Business.
So cool. So cool. The way you described it is so cool because I'm glad you explained it that way, because when you see that transformation, I know a lot of leaders they're hesitant, right? They don't want it because people have talked about accountability and responsibility for decades, and people, you go into so many businesses, I do anyway, and I'll ask you, go into so many, and people don't lay KPIs out because leaders that are visionaries don't want to be held accountable, first of all, big one. But then they've tried to do them in the past the wrong way, and they backfired. And I think you've explained a very important point around implementing KPIs and then empowering people that can affect them to collectively work together, that we just can't ignore in business.
Yeah. Well, and you're so right. I mean, I'm a process person, and I also have a visionary streak. And I even noticed, talking about being my own client in a way, I definitely had some rethinking to do in how we use KPIs in our business. You know, there are always those little things that happened in your past work life that are influencing, whether you're aware of it or not, how you're running your business every day.
Yep.
And it's powerful stuff when you get to really let some of that go and just do it the way that's going to serve everybody. And you
Yeah.
have the freedom to do that as the owner. So take it, you know?
Yes. Yes.
Um,
Now let's go back just a little bit, because we're talking about KPIs and we're doing this, but we did skip over one little piece a little. I'd like to talk a bit more about, and
yeah.
that is letting go, helping founders and these owners let go, because one of the things that we see, that you see, especially when you're getting ready to sell a business, or preparing it for sale, or just get the business so I can take a damn vacation, right?
Yep.
um, letting go. What are
Mhm.
some of the keys that you think really help an owner let go and then move to the next step and empower their teams?
Yeah. So having a system, KPIs, having a system that lets them check in on the business and know that it's going fine, because no, the owners that haven't decided to make an exit but maybe have that as a goal in the future, you know, a business is to some extent their baby. So
Mm-hmm.
when you feel like you're letting go, sometimes it feels like you're abandoning, which is not what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
um, but it's how do you really how do you figure out how you can make the most impact? You fixing some little thing on the manufacturing floor or being the best person that can do it is not the best value to your business. That's actually the worst way that you can be spending your own money. So
Mm-hmm.
that's one. But it's really that they've never gotten clear and never mapped out how they do their work. What was the inspiration? Going back to the vision thing that you were talking about, what is the inspiration that caused this business to be in existence in the first place, and how do you
Yeah.
embed that into the way your team is doing the work inside of the business every day with the clients? So it comes down to, how do you capture the essence of the leader in those processes, or the leadership team, depending on the size of the company?
Mm-hmm.
How do you have checkpoints in there where it's being ensured that those really unique differentiators are captured in how the work is done at scale? And then how does the leader have a dashboard that can let them, like a real dashboard, not like a
Yeah.
fancy let's crunch some data dashboard that tells me nothing, right?
Yeah.
We don't need another one of those. It's more about, how can I know that my team and I have talked about what's most important to the success of this business? That's step one, and have metrics that measure those things. And then a way for them, the leader, to check in and see, are we on track? If a metric is green, we don't need to be micromanaging it. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
we can talk about that at the next review, you know, of what are the goals for next year.
Yeah.
But this little expert, you know, kind of mentality on everything, it cripples a business. And you know, it I mean, you got, if especially if you're looking to sell, you gotta learn to let go, but with trust.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, protect the brand in that process, which I know you're really passionate about.
Yeah, you explained it well, and it does, it helps tremendously when you're selling, but it also helps you. I truly believe that if at the right point, yeah, you're starting out. There's you and I are in a room, and we start our business. We got to do everything for a while. That's just the way it
Yep.
is. But when you start I'm starting to put employees down, and we're getting an office, and we're doing, we might have a facility of some sort. I mean, there becomes a day that and it comes earlier than most think, that you really have to figure out, what do I let go first so
Mm-hmm.
I can do more to move us farther ahead, and keep
Yep.
moving us farther towards my goals, towards the company goals, and really to build whatever kind of legacy I want to lead. And I'm glad you explained it like that.
Yeah.
The other thing you mentioned too is the expert mentality. And it really is, most founders get into something because they're good at something, right? So I'm good at CNC machining, so I open a CNC machine shop. Or I'm good at programming. We're a SaaS shop. We develop some solution that's going to solve the problems of the world. Once you get to a certain point, that really is a detriment if you're still the expert.
Totally. Yeah.
And I think you mentioned that well, because you have to get your team has to be able to be the ones that are creating the value in the business and not you anymore. And
Right.
you have to become the architect that gets the right people in there doing it.
Good word. That's a great word to describe it, for sure.
It really is, because as businesses get bigger and bigger, and you look at these, it's little, big, doesn't matter. But when businesses are scaling, the most successful founders, executive leadership teams are really architects about where do we put the best, where do we invest in talent next?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love it. So yeah.
It's just so key. And when you look at it, the other thing, and I know I'm yes and no on this, but the other thing is not getting enamored in the latest tools, because we're good at something, right? Say I'm the CNC machine person that loves CNC machining. I'm really good at it. So we think, wow, if we're going to expand our business, we have to get this new software or this new, and realistically, most of it really should be about who we are investing in that can tell us what we need next, because I'm still trying to be the expert on what we need next. And I really need to be building my team to tell me what they think we should be doing next.
100%. 100%. And it all comes down to trust and also being okay with choosing a tool that didn't provide the magic wand that it was promised.
Yeah. Yep.
We, of course, using technology in smart ways is absolutely part of how we help businesses scale, but you can't just throw a tool at a process that's a disaster. You'll just have a faster operating bad process, right?
Yes. And you being a process person, I'm assuming you come in on a lot of processes where you really need to go, hey, before we start anything, let's look at this from A to Z and make it good to start with.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, because we've seen so many times that the tool is operational. The team knows that the tool exists, but they hate it. They don't want to, and they're just not going to use it. So you now have a dead asset just sitting there, not being used because technology was sold as being the solution to everything, and it's just not. So yeah, it's a process to installing technology thoughtfully and effectively. So yeah, it's
awesome.
Fun stuff.
Yes. So before we got on, you mentioned something about upgrading business or upgrading. Explain that a little bit. What you're seeing now, some of the things when we talk about, I just need to upgrade my business.
Yeah. So, I mean, it really comes down to operations, that was the original essence of what we were talking about. So, the process that involved 5 people, in the same office, handing stuff off seamlessly and getting it done. So many companies are remote now, and you can't just walk over to the desk of so-and-so and get something done the way you used to. So it's all about, all right, is there a flow of activity and a flow of tasks happening here, or is it getting stuck? Is there a bottleneck somewhere? A classic example, we work a lot with sales teams. They're like, why can't I just sign a contract, get the deal, and then trust that the customer is going to have a pretty good experience after it's off my desk? The work keeps coming back to me because there was no process to help the customer understand, okay, now you're going to be working with this person. I haven't disappeared, but this group is now going to be responsible for this particular part of the process. And you talked about egos before. We got to let go of some of that. Otherwise, the salesperson's going to burn out because they can't do it all. And, the customer is going to feel it. And that's the last thing that we want if there isn't that handoff. But we have to be able to explain it, and we have to be able to, even more than explain it, we have to execute it. If customer service doesn't know that they're responsible for picking up tasks 1 through 3, they're not going to do them. And the customer is going to be like, hello, I just signed $1 million contract with you, or 10 million. And it looks like you guys have no plan.
Yeah.
And then you have a revenue problem, which is a whole different thing. But yeah, really looking at the whole ecosystem of how does work get done? And do you have the right people doing it? Are they excited about doing it? And do you have processes that people can rely on when they can't just recall what the next step is in the middle of something happening?
Mm-hmm.
How do you give them that anchor that they can come back to so they can know what success looks like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome because as you said, in scaling businesses or even just businesses that need to do, you got to look at those every once in a while, because when there's 5 of us in the room working now, yes, it could be somebody's not there anymore, or 2 or 3 people aren't there anymore, and we have to figure that out. But
Yeah.
just from a sheer volume of the work going through, like you mentioned, the salesperson example, it wasn't so bad when when you're in the sales, you're out doing sales, Jessica's out doing sales, and there's 10 customers or 20 customers. Now there's 100 customers, and you're rolling sales through a lot faster. It's a lot harder for Jessica to be attentive to 100 customers needs, like you need to, when it really should be the customer service persons. And that role might change, because you could have done it in the beginning, could have been fine, but now we have to relook at that process and change it again to go with what is appropriate now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing, and I'm sure that we align on this, let that happen once when you realize that you're the bottleneck, and then move quickly to put yourself out of whatever job description. Like, don't keep doing that. Right. This is mine. I got to own it.
Don't be the bottleneck.
Right. And I, every member of my team, myself included, we're always asking ourselves that. Are we thinking about this holistically, or are we just trying to be productive all the time and make us feel like we're busy doing stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I want to get to, we got a few comments in here. We had Erica just checking in from Brazil. We got Mylan in here. He just commenting on something we said earlier. And then we got SD's in here, and he talks about the founder's dilemma. Just want to say thanks for stopping by and dropping some comments. This is such an awesome conversation with you, Jessica, because I feel a kindred spirit, because growing up and loving process and seeing how it helps. And then hearing you talk about the work you're doing. What are some of the things that really excite you about the work you're doing now?
There's so many things. The biggest one is really giving businesses an opportunity to make the impact that their mission statement states.
Wow. That's awesome. That's awesome.
There's so much influence. And this is really the original inspiration for starting Itivate. We have such an opportunity to make an impact in this world as a group of people. Let's go use that for good, not just for traditional capitalistic reasons. Making money is great. It offers a lot of opportunity for so many people when you do it well.
Yes.
And resources are necessary to make impact. And also, how do we run our businesses as an example of what business should look like?
Yeah.
And I'm always asking myself that question, giving myself my own pulse check, because we got to live by our own rules. But gosh, businesses coming together and doing great work, people coming together to do great work. I mean, there's so much opportunity there. So
yeah, 100%. I think you're right. I think there are a lot of business people, because let's face it, first of all, the news shows a way different picture than most business people. Let's just say that.
Yes. Well said.
We'll just say that.
Yeah.
And I really think, though, there's this is probably a bad word to say, but it's an awakening that people are really coming to the realization that, listen, I can have a good business. I can make money. I can have people that are happy that are engaged.
Yeah.
And it's fine, and we can make an impact. I can have, if people want to work at volunteer a day a month, full day,
Yeah.
paid. I
Yeah.
can do that. My business is not going to fall apart because of it. In fact, I'm probably going to have a better business because of it. And it just, I don't know if it's just me being, I don't know, unrealistic, but I think that there's a lot of business owners that are starting to understand that we don't have to run the pressure cooker environments that we thought we had to.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. We don't have to haze our team the way that we were hazed.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. Fraternity and sorority example. I wasn't part of one, but I know a lot of people who were. Yeah, we can be better. We can do better. And it doesn't have to suck.
Yeah. So you talked a little bit before we got live here, moving beyond the top line. I think this is kind of a nice transition because there's a lot more to a good business than just top line sales.
Yeah. Yeah. What money do you have left over?
Yeah.
This, for me personally, it was very important for me to be able to always pay my people. And I paid my people before I paid myself sometimes. And I would choose that again. Profitability is real, but most of what is taught to businesses is how to grow sales. Both are wildly important, revenue and profitability. But the profitability piece, there's a lot of nuance in there, a lot of decision making, and how money is spent, and are we getting an ROI on these investments or not? And some people just want to avoid that topic. They're like, as long as I keep growing the sales, or at least as long as I continue getting investor funds. I mean, the reality is that most venture-backed companies fail. There's such a high rate of failure there because we're not also talking about actually making money, not just having, a sexy financial statement. So really, really focusing on how are we doing our work every day? And do we, there are hard conversations that happen in that profitability discussion, no doubt. But as an organization changes, so do the needs of the business, and people and processes and technology are part of that. You got to have cash. We all went, so many of us went to business school. We know that cash is king. That's not new news. But we're seeing a lot of businesses forget that piece. And they're like, I just got to go sell. I mean, documentaries galore on how businesses have failed because of that thinking.
Yeah.
So we got to change the narrative and really focus on how cash is being spent. And when cash is constrained, to your point, how do we come back to our values to make sure that we're making choices that are in alignment with why we're here in the first place? So, yeah. People are, unless you're a manufacturing business, people are your greatest investment. So how are you making sure that you're not just spending money on all these really cool technology things, or, R&D is super important. Is that where money needs to be spent right now based on the needs of the business? It's all that pivoting and, making sure that cash is there at the end is super important.
So I've got one last question. I think I know how you're going to answer it, but I'm curious, and we'll start wrapping up. So when you're working with clients, do you encourage them to share their financial statements with all the employees?
Ooh, that's a great question. Full financial statements without any education, I think, can be a little bit counterproductive.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I would say, not an unleashing of the details, but
which some people mistake as transparency, which is right. That's not.
You can, I mean, without education, I mean, because I ran into an interesting experience because I've always been one that shared, not the whole financials, but you shared, the top line revenue. People know what our gross margin is and those kind of things. And I was working with clients, and they just didn't. And they're
Mm.
like, well, really tight fisted about it. I said, you don't think they know that you're doing X million dollars of business? Okay.
Right.
Well, yeah, they know. Do you
Right.
don't think they know that you're making money? Well, yeah, they know we're making money.
Right.
Do you think that they got an idea about how much profit you're making? Maybe. So
Yeah.
what's it matter? What's it
Right.
matter?
Yeah.
Because I think, I don't know. I just curious, because it's a big sticking point for some people. But if you don't really understand, I think for people that really want to be empowered, when you
Mhm.
want to empower your team to make a difference, if they know that our industry runs on a gross margin of 47% and we're at 40,
Right.
we got some work to do.
Right.
Or if we're at 47, the industry is at 47% and we're at 54 and we're
Yep.
going to 60, it's a good thing. And that's why the boss is probably giving us good bonuses, or,
Right.
or the owners sharing in that. I mean, I think that to me is a next step of investment in your people to really empower them to shape their future.
100%. Yeah. The way
Yeah.
you just described it, that's how KPIs can be shared, right?
Yeah.
Don't just say the target's 47. Here's why. What do you think the number should be? How do we want to measure it so it's fair? Yeah. So sharing financials in that way, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I found a while ago that when we get the leadership team, and I mean like area leaders down to that level, and I don't mean down, but to the level, and sometimes just like machine operators, doesn't matter,
Yeah.
to the level that they know, did we meet our gross margin goal for the week or not, for the
Right.
overall business, is a huge thing. Because if you got a fixed nut a month for a $1 million, you got to spend $1 million just to get to even.
Yeah.
And you can get everybody focused on, if we're over X amount, we're making money.
Yep.
It simplifies things for everyone.
Well, and it makes people feel safe, right?
Yeah.
They're not showing up to work every day wondering if they're going to have a job tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. That's a
Talk
good
about a
point.
killer of productivity. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, anyway, I digress a little bit with that, but I wanted to listen to it because I wanted to listen to get your feedback, because I think, we talk about transparency.
Yeah.
You made a great point. You don't want to just puke out data with people without understanding. So being transparent, but being thoughtful and educational in what you do is important as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Makes it fun.
yeah,
Which
yeah,
is
it
kind of
does.
the point. That's why we're doing this at the end of the
Yeah,
day, right? Is to make business fun.
yeah.
And spend so much time, might as well, right? So
I just can't believe you said that. I just
it's
can't believe, and I'll tell you why. No shit. You pull
yeah,
up my bio, and that's what I've got on my bio state. In the one that I send out for speaking, it says, if you're going to go through all the work it takes in business, why the hell are you not having fun?
well,
That's
that
funny.
kindred spirits moment. Well, there it is.
I just hit it right there.
Now we know it's for real.
Yeah. Jessica, thanks so much for being here. It is
Heck yeah.
awesome getting to talk to you. So if people want to talk to you about, their business process automation, about, high performance team development, scaling their business, putting people first, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple ways you can send us an email at hello@itivate.com. Or there's also a way to schedule a consultation on our website. So check out the way, we actually get all this fun work done.
Yeah.
A lot of people think operations isn't fun. It is, if it's done well. So yeah, check out the website or send us an email.
And your website address is again?
www.itivate.com. So it's itivate.com.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Jessica, I'm just going to say your full name, Jessica Walther. Thanks so much for being here today. I wanted everyone to know who you were so they can get a hold of you. And from Itivate, helping people, scaling businesses, putting in better processes, building high performing teams. Thanks for being here today.
It was a joy. Thank you so much.
You bet. Thanks, everyone. We'll be back again. Have a great rest of your week.